she said. You're not what I need anymore. Then her gay best friend sent me their romantic weekend plans. So I forwarded it to everyone and changed the locks. We met in our sophomore year. I am 30. She was 28. For 3 years, we lived above a laundromat in a tight 2-bedroom. Fridays were Tony's Italian. The neon outside hummed. The waiter knew our order. Her phone went face down. My hand hovered near the salt shaker. Those small routines made our life feel steady. One night, a week before everything fell apart, the restaurant felt heavier. Steam fogged the windows. She pushed her pasta and said, in a flat voice, I'm not happy. I kept calm. Okay. She looked at me like she had rehearsed the line. You're not what I need anymore. I answered with 2 words. Have fun. They were not meant to cut or to beg. They landed like a decision. The waiter stopped mid-reach. She blinked, packed her bag, and left. Her shoes tapped down the stairs. She left her toothbrush in the cup by the sink. I watched the light of her taillights vanish down the street. The apartment smelled of garlic and questions that had no answer. The next morning, she picked up once and said, It's over. Then she hung up. A few days after that, a message arrived that changed everything. Ryan, her college friend who called himself her wingman, sent something to me by mistake. The text was not a lone joke. It read like a plan for something personal. A lakeside Airbnb, a fireplace, check-in times, and a pet name I did not expect. He followed that with, oops, wrong chat, then a string of emojis, and, fuck, meant to send you that. I read and reread the words until they blurred. The phone felt heavier than it should. I could have called, confronted, or stayed quiet. Instead, I made a clear, practical choice. I forwarded his message to a group of mutual friends who had known us both. I added one line. So this is what you meant by we need to talk. Then I walked to the hardware store. I bought a deadbolt and installed it with a locksmith the next day. The old key turned once and no more. I taped the receipt to the counter like a record of a small, final act. It was not dramatic. It was a boundary. The rumor mill started. Screenshots moved through group chats. People texted questions I did not want to answer. I felt hollow and oddly unburdened at once. I cleaned the apartment until every surface looked like it could hold a new life. I sat by the front window at night and watched the street lamp draw a long bar of light on the floor. The lock felt right under my palm. On Saturday at 10:03, there was a knock, 3 sharp taps. Her voice was muffled through the door. Open up. Another voice. I stood, chose my words, and spoke through the wood. You found what you needed. Go have fun. A pause, then the metallic rattle of a key that didn't fit. Footsteps faded down the hall. The night kept that scene. It felt like a quiet verdict and a new map all at once. I closed the curtain and kept watch of the refrigerator light. I did not want her to return. I wanted the life that could grow from the small, firm boundaries I had placed. I made coffee, sat at the table, and for the first time in months, I slept without replaying us. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. The message was small on the phone, but it carried weight. A plan, a pet name, times. I forwarded the screenshot to the group of friends who were usually in our orbit and added one line. So this is what you meant by we need to talk. Then I walked to the hardware store. The deadbolt I bought was solid. The locksmith arrived at noon, and the old key turned once and stopped. I taped the receipt to the counter, more for myself than anyone else. It was a concrete action after a week of words that felt thin. Word moved fast. Screenshots ricocheted through group chats. Questions slid in from numbers I barely remembered. People formed versions of what had happened and shared them as if they had watched it. I answered none of them. Silence became a way to keep my edges intact, not to avoid pain. I cleaned the apartment until every surface gleamed. It wasn't nostalgia. It was a need to hold the space and see if it could be mine without the shape of us. The lamp by the window carved a rectangle of light on the floor each evening. The new lock felt like a small victory, a rule drawn in the right place. Saturday night came. At 10:03 p.m., there were 3 sharp knocks. Bam, bam, bam. And her voice came through the door, tight. Open up. Another voice laughed, lighter. Ryan said something about, let's talk. I walked to the door. The peephole showed familiar silhouettes, but the sound was different. I spoke through the wood. You found what you needed. Go have fun. There was the metallic scrape of a key that no longer fit. Her hand stopped. You changed the locks? She said, shocked and angry. Yeah, I said. Just protecting what's left of me. She tried to keep it casual. Don't be dramatic. It was one weekend. We needed space. Those words read like an excuse. Ryan's voice tried to smooth it. Look, man, it wasn't supposed to. I stopped him. Save it. You both made choices. Live with them. They left. Footsteps faded. For a moment, I thought the apartment would settle back into quiet. But the group chats kept buzzing. People chose sides and told stories about who we had been. I stayed silent. I wanted actions to speak without commentary. After that week, the silence felt different. It wasn't empty, it was protective. I slept less, worked longer, and felt something loosen in me. The lock stayed put. The receipt remained taped to the counter like a tiny ledger. I kept a simple rule: no chasing, no public pleas. Friends reached out with cautious messages. Some offered support, others gossip. I thanked the ones who mattered and let the rest slide. The routines I kept, Friday at Tony's, the waiter who knew our order, helped. They were not a refuge from pain, but a way to remember how to sit in a place that was mine again. I found myself checking the mailbox less, stopped waiting for apologies. Instead, I focused on work, teaching apprentices small trades, buying a used truck, paying bills on time. I began to sleep with the window cracked, listening to distant traffic and the occasional late-night laugh. The new normal wasn't flashy. It was steady, slow, and quietly honest. It suited me. 2 weeks passed before the next ripple hit. A text came from Natalie, one of her old friends who'd always floated on the edge of our shared circle. "She's falling apart," it read. "Ryan ghosted her after that group text. Guess he's not who she thought." I didn't answer right away. I sat on the couch, thumb hovering over the screen. My coffee had gone cold, and the apartment felt too quiet. I finally wrote back. "I hope she finds what she needs." "I mean that." Natalie replied almost instantly. "She says she messed up. She wants to talk." I didn't reply again. For the first time, ignoring didn't feel like anger. It felt like peace. That peace lasted until the third Saturday after she left. 9:45 p.m. rolled around, and the city outside was soft and muted. Then came that sound again, the knock. 3 times, same rhythm, same time of night. Through the peephole, I saw her. Madison. Hoodie instead of heels, eyes red from crying, shoulders smaller than I remembered. For a few seconds, I just watched her breathe. Then I opened the door halfway. "I just want to talk," she said quietly. I leaned against the frame. "About what?" "I didn't cheat on you," she started. I didn't answer. She took a breath. "The text Ryan sent, it wasn't what you think." He was confused, and I was trying to help him figure it out. "It wasn't supposed to be romantic." Her voice faltered at the word romantic. Maybe it was true. Maybe it wasn't. But trust doesn't grow back on maybes. "I believed you once," I said. "But now, every word feels like it's got conditions attached." Her eyes started to glisten. "I miss you, Michael." Hearing my name like that, soft, shaking, hurt strangely. Not because I wanted her back, but because it reminded me that love doesn't just disappear. It fades, then echoes in small moments like that one. "I miss who you used to be," I said. "Not who you became." She looked down, wiping her face. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I said simply. "But you still did." There wasn't much more to say. She stood there another few seconds, like she wanted me to fill the silence, then nodded and walked away. Her shoes tapped down the stairs, slower this time. When the door clicked shut, I felt something close inside me, too. Not bitterness, just finality. The next day, I went for a drive, no destination in mind. I passed the lake where she and Ryan had supposedly stayed, the one from the text. The air smelled like pine and damp soil. I parked for a while, sitting on the hood, watching couples walk by. I didn't feel envy. I just felt done. Back home, I made dinner, scrolled through music, and stopped on an old playlist we'd made together. I almost skipped it, but I didn't. I let it play, quietly, while I ate. The songs didn't sting anymore. They just filled the background, the way they probably always should have. Later that week, another text came in, this time from Natalie again. She's been posting weird stuff. Deleted most of her pictures. I think reality hit her. I didn't respond. People make their choices, and consequences follow, whether you chase them or not. By the end of that week, I'd learned something I hadn't expected. Revenge doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes, it's the quiet kind. The kind where your life starts to heal while theirs starts to unravel. I didn't block Madison's number. I didn't need to. Silence, it turns out, is louder than any words I could have sent. A month rolled by. Enough time for things to settle, or so I thought. I was at work one afternoon when I got a message from a mutual friend. No greeting, just a screenshot. It was from Madison's old college group chat. I didn't plan to read it, but curiosity wins small battles sometimes. She was venting about me, saying I'd embarrassed her, ruined her reputation, and cost her the only real friendship she had. Her words were bitter, sharp, like she was trying to shift the weight off herself. But then, buried between a few defensive lines, there was one that stopped me cold. It wasn't supposed to go that far with Ryan, but I couldn't stop myself. I sat back, staring at that line. No excuses. Just truth, unfiltered and too late. I didn't reply, didn't forward it, didn't post it anywhere. I deleted the screenshot, put my phone face down, and went for a walk. The air felt heavy, but clean. I stopped at the pier where she and I used to sit on Sundays and talk about someday, plans that now sounded like stories told by strangers. Same sunset, same horizon, but this time, there was no future attached to it. Just quiet. Over the next few months, life evened out. I worked, saved, and built something that was mine, steady, simple, free of second-guessing. Every Friday night, I went back to Tony's. The waiter still remembered my order, still nodded like he understood something I wasn't saying. A year passed. Then one evening, while paying my bill, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Michael, it's me. Please. I need to see you. It's important. I almost ignored it. But old curiosity doesn't die easy. I typed back, you okay? Her response came quick. No. I messed up. Can we meet? I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Tony's. I didn't expect her to show, but she did. She walked in 10 minutes late. The light from the window hit her face differently now, drawn, tired, smaller somehow. The bright, sharp version of her that used to command a room was gone. She looked ordinary, human. Thanks for coming, she said. I nodded. What's going on? She clasped her hands on the table. Ryan's gone. He disappeared after using my card. Turns out he'd been lying about everything. About being gay, about who he was with. He was seeing me and another girl. Took my savings. I thought he was different. I didn't interrupt. I just listened, watching her realize that the chaos she'd chosen had finally swallowed her whole. I keep thinking about everything I did, she said softly. You were good to me, Michael. You didn't deserve how I treated you. Her voice cracked a little, but I didn't feel anger anymore. What I felt was distance. Like hearing someone describe a story you'd already finished reading. I took a slow breath. I'm sorry that happened to you. She nodded, eyes wet, fingers trembling slightly as she picked at the edge of a napkin. You always said stability mattered more than excitement. I didn't get it then. I do now. The waiter came by with water. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile people make when they're too tired to pretend anymore. For the first time in a long time, I realized I wasn't angry. I wasn't waiting for revenge. Life had already done that work. The universe has a way of balancing things, even when you don't push it. We sat there quietly for a few minutes. No blame. No loud goodbye. Just silence between two people who had finally outgrown the version of themselves that destroyed what they had. When she left, I didn't watch her go. I just paid the bill and stayed a while longer, staring at the empty seat across from me, thinking how strange peace can feel after chaos. But that wasn't the end. She wasn't done trying. And life, as always, had one more lesson waiting. She reached out again a week later. This time, there was no drama, just a simple message. Can we talk one more time? I said yes, mostly out of curiosity. We met at a small cafe near the park. She arrived early, sitting by the window with a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. When I walked in, she looked up quickly, as if afraid I might turn around and leave. I keep replaying what I did, she said quietly, her voice thinner than before. You didn't deserve it. You were good to me. I didn't know how to handle something stable. I thought I needed more. For a long moment, I didn't say anything. I wanted to choose my words carefully, not out of bitterness, but because clarity mattered more than closure. I did love you, I said finally. But love isn't enough if one person keeps looking for chaos to feel alive. Her eyes dropped to the table. I just don't know who I am anymore. That's the problem, I said softly. You've been trying to find yourself in other people. You'll never like what you find until you stop doing that. She nodded, eyes glassy. Can we try again? The question hung there, light but heavy at the same time. I leaned back, folding my arms. No, Madison. I forgave you a long time ago, but going back would mean pretending none of it happened. And I can't do that. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just sat there, silent, as if she finally understood that some bridges don't burn. They fade quietly until there's nothing left to cross. When we stood to leave, she hugged me. It wasn't emotional or desperate, just a quiet goodbye between two people who had already said everything without saying it. 2 weeks later, Natalie texted again. Madison had moved back to Ohio, to her parents' house. She'd started therapy, deleted social media, and taken a job at a local bookstore. It sounded like the kind of slow rebuilding people only do when they finally run out of lies. Life moved on for me too. My days grew steadier. I hired 2 apprentices, bought a small truck, and began spending weekends fixing up the apartment. I even started seeing someone, a woman named Claire. She taught at a local school, calm and kind in a way that made me feel grounded. One evening, Claire and I went to Tony's. The waiter smiled and said, "Haven't seen you here with that girl in a while. Looks like you upgraded." We both laughed. And that was the moment it clicked. The past wasn't a wound anymore. It was just a story I once lived through. 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting right away. Madison. It wasn't long. Michael, I don't expect you to write back. I just wanted you to know I'm finally okay. You were right. I kept looking for peace in people instead of in myself. I've learned that love isn't about who makes your heart race, but who makes your mind rest. I hope you're happy. You deserve that. M. I read it twice, then folded it and tucked it in my desk drawer. Not as something sentimental, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. That weekend, Claire and I drove to the lake, the same one where Madison and Ryan had their romantic weekend. The air was still, the water gold under the setting sun. Claire leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You look peaceful here." "I am," I told her, "because that's what karma looks like when you stop chasing it. Not revenge, not anger, but calm." She wanted excitement. I offered stability. Now I live in the peace she'll never find again. I didn't need to ruin her life. I just needed to rebuild mine. And that, in the end, was enough.